think a lot of people look at computer artists as, I'm a computer artist, so I have a keyboard with a button that says art, and I push it and bah, I have art. And a lot of computer artists spend the same amount of time in front of the computer as they would with any other media, whether it be watercolor, acrylic, or oils. The genre that I work in is primarily considered fantasy.
On a quiet street in a quiet neighborhood in South Oklahoma City lives a quiet man who just so happens to be one of the more successful digital fantasy artists in the nation.
Fantasy is, the fantastical, the mythical, the magical. I think the most straightforward answer would be, like castles and knights and dragons and wizards and all that kind of stuff, but fantasy could be anything fantastical.
The fantastical realm of Alain Viesca is a crowded one, and it's all in his head. Mechanical creatures, dragons, fair maidens, witches, and knights all clamor for artistic release.
You have the warrior king, the lion, which represents nobility. Here you have a kind of a great grand city in the background. This was called Moon Milk, and so I wanted to do something that was kind of cute. This is a pretty good example of something that starts out as a sketch. This was done in paper, and then I brought it in, and you can see the darker lines were the digital lines over the gray pencil lines. The dragon started out as a 3D model, and when I made it, even the claws were built to be fully articulated. You have really good ideas, but you don't live so long, you only get so many really good ideas. And at least that's the way I look at it. So it hasn't been a problem yet.
What is a problem is time.
I don't have the luxury of doing what I want, because that doesn't always pay the bills. The things that I want to do are usually too big, and it requires a considerable amount of time. And that time means that you're not making money. You could be. You gotta pay the mortgage, you gotta pay the bills.
When times get lean, all artists feel the financial pinch.
The arts are a luxury for a lot of people. And one of the first things to go when your budget is tight is luxuries.
But for digital fantasy artists, especially those with families to support, a sketchy economy can be a real nightmare.
The art industry is difficult enough as it is, and then you step into a field like fantasy illustration, where even if you're a magnificent artist, somebody off the street can look at it and say, oh, it's an artist, but there's a dragon in it or a unicorn in it, and so in their eyes, it's less, I think the context of it becomes lessened, regardless of the skill that went into it. I think that maybe it's because of the way we see mythology and stories and the fantastical. It's considered something that may be relegated to children or people who don't have their feet on the ground.
Every year in the United States, millions who don't have their feet on the ground attend a host of comic conventions. Alain is a fixture at the larger shows.
At most moderate-sized conventions where you have a few hundred artists, I think I'm being generous here to think that out of 3, 4, 5, or 600 artists, you might have a couple dozen that were profitable, and less than that, that made enough money to say, I'm going home and I'm going to take this and I'm paying the rent and I'm getting the car and my insurance and everything paid off, and I'm good for the rest of the month, or 2 or 3 months. That's not very many of us. That might have been more so the case when the economy was better.
Alain is one of those 2 dozen, but at the granddaddy of all comic conventions, San Diego Comic-Con, success isn't measured in money.
You go there to exhibit your work, to be seen, and to talk to publishers, companies for concept artwork and production and design and all that good stuff. You can get some great contracts for book covers and product design and all sorts of different things. But if you break even at San Diego Comic-Con in an exhibitor's booth, you're doing really well.
When I was doing this piece, it was a kind of a steampunky, gear-driven unicorn. Now, when I laid out the sketch, this is all that anybody really cares about. This is all that anybody's going to see. And in my mind, I started thinking about, okay, well, the top coat, the armor plating, is on the outside. Underneath that, you have all these gears and chains and sprues and all these kind of things that interlock and work together. So I started trying to figure that out. And so I'm thinking, like, how does everything interconnect?
Alain spent 2 days designing the interior mechanism for this steampunk unicorn, an interior no one would see. It is the same for one of his favorite pieces, Iron Dragon.
I want him to be able to move his head around and open his claws, and I wanted to make it so that every gear that touched another gear, if I move one gear using a bit of inverse kinematics, I can get all the gears to move, just like a real machine. So, and you can do that in computer animation. So when I built the claws and I built the neck and I built the assemblages, I built it so that you can program some inverse kinematics and then get the whole thing to move and everything turns and spins and all the cogs move. No, never happened.
It might happen. To offset the decline in pay for illustration work, Alain has moved his fantastical creativity into a whole new dimension.
I am primarily a 3D sculptor, digital sculptor. I use 3D Studio Max and ZBrush. I work with figurine and game companies. I have a number of clients in Europe. 2 of my best clients are Ares Mythologic and MK Ultra. They contract me a lot for figurines and miniatures. I have a company out of Denver by the name of Hangar 18, and there's a company in France that I did some work for, Raging Heroes. There's all over the world, just different companies will contract me. They see my work or they know me from an industry insider, and I start doing whatever they want.
While he's doing whatever clients want, a fantasy figurine for a company in Barcelona, or an original commission like this piece titled Entrance to Shangri-La for an Oklahoma City business owner, Alain still dreams of doing what he wants. He can't help it.
This is a book that I want to put together. I've been putting this off for a number of years. It's not exactly an art book, not quite a graphic novel, somewhere in that realm. These are just the doodles and the rough sketches. The castle where the scene takes place, the entrance of the castle where the knight, the courier, the protagonist is going to be approaching, the woods, the haunted woods. The concept on this one is the genre is steampunk zodiac. So you have a carousel where the creatures, the ride is going to be gear driven, and I'm going to have these beautiful men and women as part of the scene, as part of the set. And unlike my earlier personal pieces, it's not going to be just an illustration, it's going to be an actual sculpture. I just need to get the equipment. I just need to find a way of accessing the printers.
Someone get this man a 3D printer and some more time so that we can all explore the digital realm of Alain Viesca.